Beyond the Gates, early spoilers for the week of August 17th are shaping up to bring plenty of tension, especially for the Dupree and Hamilton families. Vernon Dupree is really worried that Dany Dupree is about to let Bill Hamilton blow up her life all over again. Meanwhile, Joey Armstrong is furious that his sister Heather Armstrong is targeting Vanessa McBride. And what makes things worse is that Vanessa is actually falling for Heather's act. We're also expecting Haley Lawson to finally be busted. But if you've already seen those photos circulating online of Haley being arrested, I think there's more to that story than the pictures suggest. I'll get into that in a moment. First, though, let's look at what's happening for the rest of this week before we jump into the early spoilers. Wednesday, August 12th. Kat Richardson continues to focus on Haley at the hospital. Haley has Kat's undivided attention, and Kat is suspicious about almost everything surrounding Bill's condition. She's questioning what happened to Bill, what Haley has been doing, and, perhaps most importantly, why Leslie Thomas is suddenly getting so close to this tiny, toxic woman. Once Haley notices Kat watching her, I think Kat could become a target. Haley has made it pretty clear that she isn't going down without a fight. And of course, Haley has another reason to be nervous. She's terrified that one of the tests being done on Bill could reveal the toxin she's been giving him. But Randy Parker seems convinced that the person who supplied the poison was right and that it won't show up in the testing. I'm wondering if Haley's confidence is eventually going to come back to haunt her. Naomi Hamilton Hawthorne heads to Bill's law office and his home, looking for his prenup with Haley. She's also planning to pack up some things and bring them back to Bill. But things get heated at the law firm when Tomas Navarro confronts Naomi. He basically accuses her of marking her territory before Bill is even gone. Naomi is not about to let that slide. She fires right back, demanding to know what the hell he thinks he's saying to her. Meanwhile, Dany goes to Vanessa for advice. But I think Dany may have to answer a few uncomfortable questions before Vanessa gives her any advice. I could see Vanessa asking something like, after watching Bill go through this life and death ordeal, facing surgery and nearly dying, did any of that change the way Dany feels about him? Because to me, that is the real question hanging over Dany right now. Andre Richardson was stunned to discover that Dany was with Bill when he arrived at the hospital. Now Andre is looking for advice from Ted Richardson, and I think there's a good chance the Dany and Bill situation is exactly what they're discussing. Ted and Kat also have a conversation at the hospital about how the cousins are handling everything. Kat says they're nervous about their father. Chelsea is unraveling. Naomi is throwing herself into legal work to distract herself, and when Aunt Dany comes up, Kat clearly has plenty to say. I'm wondering whether Kat will tell Ted about Dany referring to Bill as her husband. That little remark could become much more important than Dany realizes. Elsewhere, Samantha Richardson tells Jessica something that is difficult for her to hear. Martin Richardson and Smitty Smith are also trying to help Tyrell Richardson deal with the heartbreak after Jessica dumped him. And honestly, I think the dads might secretly be a little relieved. If Tyrell is heartbroken over Jessica, at least he may stop thinking about flying to California every week. Thursday, August 13th. Thursday brings more trouble for Joey and Vanessa because they are definitely not on the same page about Heather. Vanessa believes she and Heather genuinely bonded, but Joey knows better. From his perspective, Heather was playing his sister the entire time. And I think Joey is going to be increasingly frustrated watching Vanessa fall for it. Smitty also considers an interesting new opportunity, and I'm curious to see where that leads. Then there's Andre's visit to Bill at the hospital. This one could get very tense. I'm wondering whether someone has already told Bill by this point that Dany called him her husband. If Bill knows about that, I could see Andre hearing some very uncomfortable things from him. And there's another possibility I can't completely rule out. Bill could reveal the secret about that sexy elevator encounter to Andre. If that happens, Dany could have an entirely different problem on her hands. Ashley and Grayson Perez are also worried about Naomi because the stress surrounding Bill's condition is really getting to her. And I have to say, I'm hoping Naomi finds that prenup. Because if she does, the legal battle surrounding Bill and Haley could become explosive, and Haley may finally realize that all of her carefully constructed plans are beginning to fall apart. I think Jacob Hawthorne is planning a surprise for Naomi, with Grayson and Ashley helping him distract his wife. Meanwhile, Caroline, Lee, and Haley are clearly playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Caroline may have figured out more than she's letting on. And, of course, she literally saved Bill's life. I'm sure Haley wishes Caroline had simply left him on the floor. On Friday, August 14th, Beyond the Gates brings Vanessa face-to-face with Noah while he's out with her daughter, Deanna McBride. I'm wondering if Vanessa will be especially intrigued when she discovers that Noah is Kyle Rollin's son, considering how close she is to Nicole. Then Joey confronts Heather. He knows she's in the DMV to cause trouble, and he absolutely does not want her using Vanessa as a pawn in whatever agenda she has. Of course, Heather is not the type to back down, so I doubt Joey is going to be happy with what happens next. Chelsea also has an update for Kat, and I think there's a good chance it could involve Haley. At the same time, all eyes are on Dany after her emotional declaration that Bill is still her husband. Anita Dupree, Vernon, and Nicole Dupree Richardson confront Dany with some very difficult questions heading into the end of the week. And honestly, Dany is getting dangerously close to destroying her marriage to Andre over Bill, which is quite something considering how much damage Bill has already caused in her life. We're also told that one couple reaches a new understanding. Maybe it's Dany and Andre, although that would be a little scary given everything happening between them. It could possibly be Bill and Haley too. Andre has been brushing off his stalker as someone who will eventually go away if he refuses to respond. But by the end of the week, that stalker lures Andre to a rendezvous. I'm really curious about the possibility that the stalker could be the increasingly unhinged Heather Armstrong. Then, during the week of August 17th through August 21st, Madison Montgomery is due back in the DMV. I'm wondering if Madison could be the person who finally cracks this case and figures out that Bill was poisoned. Randy is obviously worried that he could get dragged down if Haley gets exposed, and Joey is keeping a very close eye on everything. Joey already suspected that Randy and Haley were up to no good, and when Vernon called Joey about Randy, that only raised another red flag. Now let's talk about those photos that have been circulating of Haley supposedly being arrested by the police. I've seen these images on Facebook and on some sketchy YouTube channels that specialize in clickbait and fan fiction style spoilers. I'm going to show them, but I want to make this absolutely clear. The pictures are fake. They are AI generated. These are not legitimate spoiler photos. Look closely and the problems become obvious. In one image, there are female police officers, while another supposedly shows 2 male officers. And then there's Caroline holding up a test tube, even though she's a paralegal, not a doctor. The people creating these AI images were incredibly sloppy. So, if you've seen these pictures and you're waiting for this arrest scene to happen, I would not get too excited. These are deepfakes being used by clickbait accounts to generate views. Now, would the Duprees love to see Haley arrested? Absolutely. Dany especially would probably welcome it. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Haley finally face some real consequences either. But these particular pictures are not evidence that it's happening. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Haley really does get exposed soon. Maybe Kat figures something out. Maybe Madison finds the clue that everyone else has missed. Either way, I think it's long overdue for Haley to finally face consequences. Dany is also continuing to face questions from her family, and to me, she really needs to come clean to Andre about the elevator incident and everything surrounding Bill. Why is Dany suddenly so emotional about Bill? Why is she so terrified of losing him? She was literally kissing his hand when Haley burst into Bill's room. This whole situation is incredibly messy, and I love it. This is exactly the kind of over-the-top soap opera chaos that makes Beyond the Gates so entertaining. None of the duprees seem eager to see Dany reunite with Bill, and honestly, even her daughters have plenty of reasons to feel that way. Bill treated Dany terribly long before Haley ever entered the picture. And let's be honest, Bill's zipper has never exactly been his strongest point. Even if Dany does reunite with him, I have a feeling he'll eventually go right back to his old habits. At this rate, Bill might need one of those Tony Stark-style chest batteries just to keep that pacemaker going while he continues getting himself into trouble. I could be wrong, but right now I'm watching Caroline, Madison, Kat, and Joey very closely. One of them may be the person who finally puts the pieces together and brings Haley's entire scheme crashing down. Beyond the Gates spoilers for Friday, August 14th suggest that several secrets could finally start coming to the surface, especially when Dany Dupree finds herself in the hot seat and Andre Richardson attends a mysterious meeting. I think Andre's storyline is particularly intriguing right now. Many Beyond the Gates fans believe Heather Armstrong is connected to Andre's past and may also be the person stalking him. If that theory is correct, I was wondering whether Friday's mysterious meeting could finally bring Andre face to face with Heather. Either way, it sounds like we may get some important answers about Andre's situation. What stands out to me, though, is that he apparently won't be telling his wife Dany everything that's going on. Of course, Dany has plenty of secrets of her own, so it's hard to feel like either one of them is being completely honest. Meanwhile, Dany won't have much time to worry about Andre because her own family is about to put her under pressure. Anita Dupree, Vernon Dupree, and Nicole Dupree will reportedly corner Dany and start asking some serious questions. After everything that happened during the tornado, I think it was only a matter of time before her family demanded some answers. The biggest question is whether Dany will finally admit the truth about what happened between her and Bill Hamilton during the tornado. She could try to dodge their questions, but with this family, I'm not sure how long she can keep everything hidden. Elsewhere, Catherine "Kat" Richardson will receive an update from Chelsea Hamilton, her best friend, cousin, and business partner. I'm curious to see whether Chelsea's update will connect to any of the other drama unfolding around the Richardson and Hamilton families. Vanessa McBride will also have an interesting encounter when she meets her daughter Deanna McBride's new boyfriend, Noah Rollins. Vanessa already knows Noah's father, Dr. Kyle Rollins, but meeting his son could be a completely different experience. Noah is the manager of the Doug McBride Free Clinic, but he also has dreams of becoming a rock star. I think Vanessa's reaction could be entertaining. She certainly isn't in a position to judge anyone's romantic choices, but this is Beyond the Gates, where even the most complicated characters can suddenly become relationship critics. So, will she approve of Deanna's new man? I guess we'll have to see. And then there's Heather. Friday's spoilers suggest that Joey Armstrong will finally call his sister out. He loves Heather, but he clearly doesn't trust her, and I think he's reaching the point where he's had enough of her games. Joey seems convinced that Heather is up to something, and instead of staying quiet, he's apparently going to let her know that he's watching her. The bigger question is whether Heather will actually back off. Personally, I'm not convinced. Heather seems to be only getting started with whatever plan she has in motion. If Joey thinks confronting her will make her straighten up, he may be underestimating just how determined she is. In fact, I think his warning could have the opposite effect and simply add more fuel to the fire. So Friday's Beyond the Gates could give us a little bit of everything. Dany facing an interrogation from her family, Andre potentially getting closer to the truth about his mysterious past, Vanessa meeting Noah, and Joey putting Heather on notice. If the current theories are right, I wouldn't be surprised if Friday's episode leaves us with even more questions than answers. Picking up where yesterday's episode left off, I think Bill is convinced Andre came to his hospital room out of jealousy. After all, Bill asked to see Dany, and she came running, as he proudly points out. To Bill, that proves Andre can't stop Dany from thinking about her ex. But Andre isn't having it. He reminds Bill that, yes, Dany has memories of him, but that's because their relationship is in the past, exactly where Andre believes Bill needs to leave it. I have to say, Andre makes a pretty strong point when he calls Bill out for taking pride in the fact that Dany, despite everything he put her through, may still have feelings for him. The argument quickly turns nasty and Bill's heart rate spikes. Ashley rushes in and puts an end to the confrontation, giving Andre a lecture in the process. But before Andre can fully move on, he gets another message from the mysterious person who has been lurking around the edges of his life. The message simply says, "Soon." And honestly, I'm starting to wonder, Heather, is that you? Later, Vanessa and Heather have their own gossip session, while Dany finds herself thinking about Andre and the complicated history she still shares with Bill. She remembers the good moments from her romance with Andre, but she also can't completely escape the emotional hold Bill seems to have over her. When Dany arrives at the hospital and learns that Bill and Andre have already had a showdown, she storms into Bill's room. She makes it very clear that if he reveals what happened between them, she will make sure he regrets it. Dany even swears, on everything I hold dear, that she'll see Bill into a grave if he talks. That is a pretty serious threat, and I think it says a lot about just how complicated Dany's feelings still are. Haley arrives, forcing Dany to leave. Once they're alone, Haley asks Bill the question that has probably been hanging over everyone's head. Should she and Andre be worried that Dany and Bill's connection is still far from severed? Meanwhile, Andre heads to Uptown and starts receiving messages from the mysterious person. The messages make it sound like this person is actually at the bar with him. That certainly doesn't feel like a coincidence. Then Dany calls Andre. Interestingly, neither one tells the other where they are. Instead, they promise to shower each other with love once they're back home. It's a sweet moment, but I can't help thinking something darker is happening in the background. As Andre hangs up, someone watches him from across the room. So, who is it? That mystery could become one of the biggest stories moving forward. Elsewhere, Vanessa heads to the casino after spending time with Heather, and Joey is far from thrilled about their growing relationship. He clearly doesn't trust Vanessa and believes she has an ulterior motive. Joey knows Vanessa wants to merge their businesses, but he's left wondering just how far she's willing to go to make that happen. And knowing Vanessa, I think that may be the real question. Over at Smitty and Martin's place, Kat discovers that the party for Tyrell didn't exactly turn out to be a huge success. But Smitty soon gets an interesting opportunity when he receives an invitation to appear on a new true crime podcast to discuss the Impaler case. That sounds like a great opportunity, until Shonda arrives and immediately shuts the idea down. She doesn't want Smitty or Martin anywhere near the podcast because she's terrified Smitty could say something that might damage Martin's chances of being reelected. Even after Martin gives Smitty his blessing, Smitty ultimately decides to turn the offer down. But for me, the biggest story heading into the next episode is still Andre's mystery person. Someone from Andre's past appears determined to become part of his present, and the repeated messages make it clear that this person isn't going away anytime soon. I may be wrong, but I have a feeling we're finally getting close to discovering who has been hiding behind those mysterious messages. And if it really is Heather, as I suspect, then Andre could be walking straight into a much bigger problem than he realizes. Whatever happens next, Dany, Andre, and Bill are nowhere near finished with their complicated history, and the person watching Andre from the shadows could make everything even more explosive. I think this episode does a really good job of showing just how messy these relationships have become, especially for Dany, who seems determined to convince everyone, including herself, that she has moved on from Bill. At the country club, Joey runs into Vanessa and learns she's supposed to meet Heather for tennis later. Joey points out that his sister doesn't even play, but before they can get into that, they walk in on a tense conversation between Andre and Dany. Andre is clearly bothered by how attentive Dany has been toward Bill. Then Ted calls, giving Andre the perfect excuse to leave the club. Dany insists to Vanessa and Joey that everything between her and Andre is fine, but honestly, I don't think she's convincing anyone. Once Joey leaves, Vanessa gets straight to the heart of the issue. She wants Dany to admit that she still loves Bill. Dany tearfully explains that she loves Andre too, and that Andre is the man she wants to be with. But Vanessa notices something I couldn't help noticing myself. Dany sounds less like she's explaining her decision and more like she's trying to convince herself that she made the right one. Dany knows she has to prioritize her marriage and somehow get Bill out of her system. The problem is, feelings don't disappear just because you decide they're inconvenient. Meanwhile, Bill is back in the hospital, and apparently even being nearly dead isn't enough to stop him from wanting a baby back rib sandwich. Kat sneaks one into his room at his request, only for Haley to swoop in and shut the whole thing down. After trading insults with Kat, Haley takes the sandwich away and starts playing the worried, devoted wife again. Bill isn't buying it. He tells Haley to stop pretending because there's nobody left to impress. That line really stood out to me because Haley's performance seems to depend on having an audience. Without one, the act becomes much harder to maintain. Bill eventually apologizes for snapping at her, explaining that he's miserable being stuck in the hospital again. And of course, he's hungry. Joey arrives just in time to watch Haley continue with her victim routine about the duprees supposedly hating her. Once Joey gets Bill alone, though, he gives him some practical advice. If Garland Memorial can't figure out what is actually wrong with him, maybe Bill needs to find a doctor who can. And then Joey runs into Haley in the lobby. His warning that he's watching her feels ominous to me. I'm wondering how long it will be before Joey starts putting the pieces together. Elsewhere, Smitty and Martin try to cheer up Tyrell by turning their living room into a full-blown Banneker spirit explosion. Samantha, however, has no patience for it. She leaves to talk to Jessica and tells her that she needs to make a clean break from Tyrell. According to Samantha, Jessica needs to stop keeping tabs on him through her and through social media. Every little update only gives Tyrell hope that there might still be a chance between them. When Samantha comes home, she gives Tyrell the same message from another angle. He is bigger than one bad breakup. College is coming. He has plenty of opportunities ahead of him, and eventually he'll move on from Jessica. I think that storyline is painful precisely because Tyrell clearly isn't ready to hear any of it. Then there's Tomas and Naomi, who once again find themselves at odds. Tomas catches Naomi in Bill's office and accuses her of marking her territory. Naomi immediately shuts that down and reminds him that he hasn't even bothered to ask how Bill is doing. That seems to expose something important about Tomas. He claims he wants to help, but Naomi clearly questions his motives. Later, Naomi privately thanks Caroline for saving Bill's life by giving her a self-care gift basket. When Naomi asks what Caroline thinks about Tomas, Caroline admits that she doesn't trust him. And honestly, that makes me wonder if Caroline knows, or senses, something that the others haven't figured out yet. Kat later meets Tomas at Orphe Jean's and hears about his confrontation with Naomi. Tomas insists that he only wants to help, and he asks Kat to talk some sense into her cousin. Kat refuses to take sides. She knows Naomi well enough to understand that once Naomi makes up her mind, very little is going to change it. I think Kat is probably right. Trying to force Naomi into seeing things Tomas's way could easily make the situation even worse. But the biggest confrontation may still be coming. After Andre vents to Ted about the entire Dany and Bill situation, his uncle gives him some straightforward advice. Stop circling around the problem and confront both of them head on. So Andre heads straight to the hospital. And that is where I think this episode could really start changing everything. Dany may be trying desperately to keep her marriage together while pushing Bill out of her heart. But Andre clearly isn't satisfied with pretending everything is fine anymore. If I'm reading the setup correctly, Andre walking into Bill's hospital room could be the moment all these buried feelings finally start coming out into the open. Whether that leads to answers or an even bigger disaster, I have a feeling the Dany, Andre, and Bill triangle is nowhere near finished. Andre has been increasingly frustrated by Dany's continued connection to Bill, especially now that her ex-husband is recovering from yet another health scare. But on Friday's episode of Beyond the Gates, I think Andre is about to discover that he has plenty of drama of his own to worry about. According to the August 14th spoilers, Andre is lured to a mysterious rendezvous. And honestly, that sounds like trouble. I can't help wondering if someone from Andre's past is finally ready to step back into his life. Something, or more accurately, someone, could soon distract Andre from obsessing over Dany's inability to completely let go of Bill. Bill's collapse clearly triggered emotions in Dany that Andre would rather not deal with. But now, the tables may be turning. Andre has been receiving mysterious text messages, and I think there's a very good chance they are connected to the same person who sent Dany that belated wedding gift, the incredibly expensive bottle of champagne. So who is behind all of this? I was wondering whether Andre is about to come face to face with someone from his past, perhaps someone who knows far more about him than Dany realizes. The mysterious rendezvous certainly makes it seem like Andre's history may be catching up with him. Of course, I could be wrong, but the timing feels far too deliberate to ignore. Meanwhile, Dany is about to find herself in the hot seat with Anita, Vernon, and Nicole. For a while, Dany's family seemed comfortable with the idea that she had finally moved on from Bill. They even appeared to approve of Andre being part of her life. But that confidence may have disappeared after they heard Dany refer to Bill as her husband rather than her ex-husband. That single word could raise some very uncomfortable questions. And for Dany's sake, I really hope her family hasn't discovered what happened between her and Bill in that elevator on the night of the tornado. If they have, then Dany may have a lot more explaining to do than she expected. Then there's Heather, who is still hanging around in a way that feels increasingly suspicious. Usually, Heather seems to come and go from her brother's life, but this time she appears determined to build a relationship with Vanessa. Heather says she wants to get to know Vanessa, but I'm not completely convinced that's all there is to it. Joey clearly senses that something is off, and I think his decision to confront his sister could finally force Heather to reveal what she's really doing. The biggest question is whether Heather will continue playing things close to the vest, or finally admit what brought her back into the picture. Elsewhere, Chelsea gives Kat an update, while another couple on the Beyond the Gates canvas reaches a new understanding. And Vanessa is about to meet Noah while he's out with Deanna. Noah and Deanna's relationship has been slowly building since their meet-cute at Orphe Jeans. They continued to spark during Anita's celebration at Uptown, and now Vanessa gets the opportunity to see firsthand what kind of effect Noah has on her daughter. That could be a very important moment. Will Vanessa approve of Noah and Deanna as a potential couple, or will she immediately become suspicious and decide that her daughter needs to be more careful? To me, Vanessa's reaction could tell us a lot about where this relationship is heading. Deanna may be enjoying the romance, but her mother could see warning signs that she hasn't noticed yet. And while Dany is busy dealing with questions about Bill, Andre may be walking directly into a problem of his own. If that mysterious rendezvous really does involve someone from Andre's past, then Friday's episode could mark the beginning of a storyline that completely changes the balance between Andre, Dany, and Bill. I may be wrong, but it certainly feels like Andre's past is about to come blasting back into his present. Beyond the Gates is turning up the pressure in Fairmont Crest, and I think Friday's episode could bring some major revelations. Dany Dupree finds herself backed into a corner, Andre Richardson appears ready for a secret meeting, and Heather Armstrong may finally be called out for the trouble she's been causing. I think Dany is about to have a very uncomfortable family meeting. Anita Dupree, Vernon Dupree, and Nicole Dupree are expected to confront her, leaving Dany with very little room to escape the questions coming her way. I was wondering how she'll handle being cornered by 3 members of her own family. Will she finally tell them the truth, or will she find another way to protect whatever secret she's hiding? Meanwhile, Chelsea Hamilton gives Catherine "Cat" Richardson an update, adding another piece to the complicated Dupree family drama. But the bigger mystery may involve Andre. He's expected to have a secret rendezvous, and I think there's a good chance this could finally bring him face to face with the person who has been stalking him and sending those mysterious messages. If that happens, we could finally learn more about Andre's past, and more importantly, the identity of the person behind the messages. I've seen the theory that Heather Armstrong could be involved, and honestly, I think that possibility makes this storyline even more interesting. I may be wrong, but if Heather really is connected to Andre's mysterious situation, there could be a much bigger story hiding underneath all of this. Speaking of Heather, her brother Joey Armstrong is expected to call her out. Joey apparently knows that Heather is up to something in the DMV, and it sounds like he's reached the point where he's no longer willing to play along with her games. But I don't think Heather is anywhere near finished. Joey may warn his sister to stay away from the people he cares about, especially Vanessa McBride. The big question is whether Heather will actually listen to him. To me, it sounds more like she could see his warning as a challenge rather than a reason to back off. Elsewhere, Vanessa is set to meet Deanna McBride's new love interest, Noah Rollins. Noah is a former wannabe rock star who has moved into the role of a free clinic manager, and I'm curious to see what Vanessa makes of him. He may seem like a good guy, but when it comes to Deanna, I think Vanessa is going to have her own standards. Will she approve of Noah, or will she decide he isn't good enough for her daughter? Friday's episode appears to have several storylines moving toward potentially important confrontations. Dany is facing her family. Andre may finally come closer to uncovering the truth about his stalker. And Joey is putting Heather on notice. And if Heather really is connected to Andre's mystery, I think the Armstrong and Richardson storylines could be heading toward a much bigger collision than anyone expects. If I'm being honest, Colby Nixon has plenty to celebrate right now. Beyond the Gates just made a major splash at the 2026 Daytime Emmy Awards, and Nixon herself continues to make an impact both on and off the screen. But while things may be looking up for the actress, her character, Cat Richardson, is facing one of the messiest situations imaginable. During a recent interview, Nixon opened up about the show's impressive Emmy recognition, Cat's complicated relationship with her half-sister, Eva Thomas, and why her work as a lupus advocate is so personal to her. I think the biggest headline here is the show's Emmy success. Beyond the Gates earned 15 nominations for the 2026 Daytime Emmy Awards in its first year of eligibility. Even more impressive, the CBS soap landed in the Outstanding Daytime Drama Series category. For a new soap, that is a pretty major statement. Nixon made it clear that the cast is proud of how strongly the show has connected with both fans and critics. To me, that reaction says a lot about how quickly Beyond the Gates has established its identity. Nixon explained that the cast feels honored because viewers and critics are recognizing the quality, effort, and emotion that everyone has poured into the series. And honestly, I can understand why that would be especially meaningful for a show still in its first year of Emmy eligibility. Interestingly, Nixon didn't grow up as a traditional soap fan. But I was wondering if maybe the genre was always destined to find her anyway, because she revealed that she was actually named after the Colby family from Dynasty. So, in a strange way, Nixon already had a little piece of soap opera history in her name. She described Beyond the Gates as a sexy, dramatic story centered around the Dupree family and their attempts to protect everything they have built. And judging by Kat's current storyline, the drama is certainly living up to that description. Kat is now facing a decision that could completely change her relationship with Eva. Eva needs a liver transplant, and Kat may be in a position to become her donor. That means Kat has to decide whether she is willing to give her half-sister a piece of her own liver in order to save her life. Sounds simple, right? Not even close. The biggest problem is that Kat and Eva are hardly acting like sisters who are ready to put their differences aside. In fact, they are closer to enemies than family right now. Nixon acknowledged the irony of the situation, explaining that Kat has to decide whether she will give her ultimate enemy a piece of her liver. And that, to me, is exactly the kind of moral dilemma soaps do best. I think the interesting question isn't simply whether Kat can save Eva. It's whether Kat can separate her personal feelings from the possibility of losing her sister. Because if Kat refuses, she could have to live with the consequences. But if she agrees, Eva survives, and Kat may have to deal with the fact that she saved someone she deeply resents. And knowing soap operas, I wouldn't be surprised if the decision becomes even more complicated before Kat ever gets near an operating room. Nixon also teased another side of Kat that fans clearly enjoy: her ability to absolutely tear into someone when she has something to say. She mentioned recently filming a scene where Kat was essentially reading someone for filth. So even while Kat is dealing with a potential life or death situation involving Eva, she apparently hasn't lost that sharp tongue. I think that combination is part of what makes Kat such an interesting character. She can be vulnerable when the situation demands it, but she is still Kat. She isn't suddenly going to become soft just because her half-sister needs her. And then there is Nixon's work away from the soap. The actress has been involved with the Black Health Matters Harlem Health Summit and Expo, where she has used her own experiences to advocate for greater awareness surrounding chronic illness. Nixon has spoken publicly about living with lupus nephritis, a kidney complication associated with lupus, and she explained why health advocacy is so important to her. For Nixon, the Health Expo provides an opportunity for people to access free health screenings and hear from experts through various panels. But beyond the event itself, I think her personal connection makes the work even more meaningful. She has lupus herself, so advocating for people living with chronic illnesses is clearly more than just another public appearance. When I look at everything happening around Colby Nixon right now, there is a lot to celebrate. Beyond the Gates is receiving major Emmy recognition. Kat is at the center of a potentially explosive storyline with Eva, and Nixon is using her platform to bring attention to an issue that matters deeply to her. But the real question for Kat is much simpler. Can she put years of resentment and rivalry aside when Eva's life is hanging in the balance? I'm not sure she can.